Let's see. Put this one. I should have used the other computer. Oh well. I should have used the other one. The other one is sharper. Oh boy. Okay. It's okay. You'll just have to manage me like this. Let me see, get the light brighter. Okay, yay! Okay, there we are. And then let's get the TikTok folks started. Hello, everybody. We do have an interesting topic tonight. So remember to get your pen, get your notebook.
Hi, Mommy.
Get your.
Fine. Why are you sitting here?
Come on now. Hi, Miser Panda. Yeah, get your notebook and your pen. I wonder why this is so slow. Okay. Okay, I'll have to probably switch that to a faster device at some point. So, hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Tochi, aka Papa Dr. Tochi, Mama of the men's and the women's. Hello, Fire. Today we're going to talk about understanding the differences between an incubus and succubus and intimacy egregore. Okay. That question came up during a coaching session recently, and I was like, hey, that would be a good topic to teach on. All right, so make sure you have your drink, your snack, your notebook, and your pen. Let me put on my protection bracelets. Okay, for obvious reasons. And then I do have my ice water here. And my website is tochi.us or drtochi.com. So if you need a book of divination or spiritual consultation, spiritual counseling, okay, a dream interpretation, okay, you need spiritual practice coaching, you can go to my website and get that, drtochi.com or tochi.us, tochi.us. So make sure you have your notebook and your pen. We're going to go fast, we're going to go deep, and we're going to go furious with tonight's topic. Okay. I also put out a notice, was it yesterday or the day before, about an online retreat we're having. I think it's 5 or 6 days. Okay, where we're going to work with clearing, energetic cleansing. And if you attend that retreat, okay, only 8 seats available. So if you attend that retreat, you will learn how to clear yourself fast. Okay, if you're experiencing stagnation and obstacles and confusion, that's what I'm going to teach in that retreat, 6 days. It's going to be intense. Okay, so if you still depend on religion or you're waiting for miracles to help you out, it would not be a good idea to attend this retreat. But if you are a spiritual seeker, spiritual student, spiritual practitioner, and you are like, you know what, I'm done with the affirmations, I am done with, doing positive thinking, I want something that delivers results fast. This is it, 6 days. Okay, I've posted that information on all my platforms. You can also see it on my website at drtochi.com or tochi.us. Go to the events tab. Hi, Dee. Thank you for liking the live. And I would appreciate a thumbs up and a like. That lets the algorithm know to inform people that class has started. There are people who, they've been doing divination after divination after divination, and the divinations keep telling them, you're a great person. You're a wonderful person. You have riches. You have wealth. You're popular. You are this. You are this and that. And you're supposed to be married and have kids. And you're looking at yourself and you're like, are you talking about me or somebody else? And you're asking yourself, what is keeping me from all these predictions about my destiny? I'm here. I'm struggling with my bills. I'm trying to pay my bills. I'm trying to get money. I'm trying to get into a relationship. But I'm doing all these divinations and I'm getting all these rosy interpretations. So, what's preventing me from getting from here to there? So, that's what we're going to tackle during this retreat. And when you come, oh, hi, Lux Queen Sheck. Thank you for liking the live. Thank you. And again, it will require you to bring your authentic self to the table. Okay. I don't do retreats where we do, woo, everybody feels good, light and love. And then after that, you're wondering, okay, I didn't learn anything. I didn't see any changes. Okay. I do have a class on initiations. A lot of times um, uh, people think that, oh, if I get initiated, that will solve my problems. And I've done a class on that. Do you need to get initiated? And if you're wondering about that, go to my YouTube channel and watch that. My YouTube channel is a literal library of spiritual topics. And I know a lot of content creators go to my website, not to my website, to my YouTube channel to get topics to teach and to share. And I encourage that because if you don't understand the way that I'm putting it to you, maybe you will understand how someone else will put it to you. So I don't have a problem with that. There's enough sky for all birds to fly. The important thing is that the message gets out and that people start taking massive action. Okay? And so I've talked about initiation, the need for initiation in solving life problems. And there are many of us who are going and getting initiated and paying all kinds of money for huge fancy initiations, but we're still having problems in our lives because the initiation is not teaching us how to solve those problems. The initiation is just like saying, here, you are now a member of this group or now a member of the society and you now have a fancy title. And that's all well and good. But it doesn't make sense for me, for example, to be answering Dr. Tochi and I can't solve my problems. Then of what use is the doctor? Of what use? If I can't solve my problems, you can call me doctor all day long, all night long. It will not make a difference. So it's not the title that puts money in the bank account. It's not the title that puts food on the table. It's not the title that puts the roof over the head. It's the knowledge and practical knowledge. You have to know how to solve your problems. And in the retreat, we're going to be talking about how we are the obstacles to our own problems. So there are a lot of times we're like, oh, somebody's doing this to me, and I'm a victim of witchcraft, and I'm a victim of hexes and curses and things of that nature. And you do all these rituals, and you pay people to do all these expensive rituals for you. And after it's all said and done, your problem still stays with you. Chances are You might be your own problem. And that is why when we do rituals, we don't always say, Obatala, go and wipe out Miss Zuripenda. Suppose Miss Zuripenda is not the cause of your problems. That thing can boomerang, especially if Miss Zuripenda is spiritually fortified. And so you're sending stuff her way that she does not deserve. And you're thinking, okay, we work in the same office and I see the way she looks at me. So I'm sure she's doing some hoodoo, voodoo, juju on me. And you send something malicious her way or maleficent her way. It will come right back to you because she's not guilty. And if she's spiritually fortified, it will hit you hard. So we need to know about these things. What are the chains that hold us back? How do we know? How do we identify the chains that hold us back? You've been doing all these rituals and you've been paying people to do rituals and spells and you've been doing prayers and fasting and all these fancy things, and you're not getting your heart's desire. So that's what we're going to be examining during that retreat. And then there is going to be a VIP level. If you want to get Carrie Shell divinations and spiritual counseling from me during the days of that retreat, then you pay extra. And then you'll get the VIP treatment, you get additional attention. But if you're just okay with, hey, I'm just going to come here and learn what I need to learn and run with it, that's also fine by me. Okay. I'm going to be cracking open some occult knowledge during that retreat. Okay. I will be cracking open some occult knowledge. And by occult knowledge, I don't mean just what you read from a book or website. I'm going to crack open occult practices, things that you can start doing immediately. Start helping yourself. Okay? So let's get into today's topic. Incubus, Succubus, and Egregore. Okay? So how do you know, okay, how do you know what's tormenting you? Now, some people some people don't see it as a torment, okay? There are some people who actually enjoy it. They want to go to bed and get a little frisky at night in bed, and they don't mind it. And they don't care what the other party looks like. So even if the other party has a horn coming out the middle of its head, hello, Rasta Liberty. Even if the other party has a horn coming out the middle of its forehead, they don't care. They're just getting their freak on. Get your freak on. Get your freak on. Get your freak, get your freak on. So, there are some people who are like that. They're not particular about the looks of their intimacy partner. And there are some people who are particular. There are some people who want the lights on. So while some people don't want the lights on, some people want the lights off. Okay? Some people want to be high, and some people want to be clear. So people have different needs, um, when they want to get their freak on. But here's the challenge. Here is the challenge. What if that thing, that entity that you are being intimate with is taking more from you, is taking more from you than what you're enjoying from it? What if it's taking something vital from you that is more than the enjoyment or the fun that you're getting from it? And then that's where the challenge is. Okay. When we talk about Incubus, and I do have a free video class on my YouTube channel I did some years ago on Incubus and Succubus, because some people are like, oh yeah, I have an Incubus with me, I have a Succubus with me, and they have no idea what they're talking about. Okay. An Incubus, which is singular, the plural of Incubus is incubi. The plural of Incubus is incubi. It is considered to be a demon, a male demon in human form, that likes to be intimate with women. On the other hand, the succubus, plural, is succubi, are the female versions that are intimate with men. But the incubus and the succubus, or the incubi and succubi, depending on how many are involved here, okay, feed off of sexual energy. That's what feeds them. And so when they're interacting with people, they will feed off that energy. That's what feeds them. They come when the victim is asleep. They don't just come and knock at the front door in sexy lingerie or dressed in a, like when people are doing the role play and they'll wear a sexy officer's out, thing. They're wearing officer's cap, have an officer's badge, and be wearing some thigh highs or so. Nah, 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 nah. Okay. They don't show up like strippers at your front door. Okay. Now, the idea behind succubus and incubus, of course, it comes from the tales of European tales and Middle Eastern tales. A general equivalent in the African sense that has been pushed by Pentecostal churches is the so called spiritual wife and spiritual husband. And I have done a video class on spiritual wife or spiritual husband. Okay, so you can understand the origins of that, how that term came about. But, the Pentecostal Christians took that and ran with it. And so if you have a dream at night where you're being intimate with someone, especially someone of the opposite sex, they'll say, oh, yeah, that's your spirit wife or that's your spirit husband. And if you have sex with a person, you're going to have a mitigated failure, a mitigated bad luck, a mitigated this and that and whatnot, which is not proven. Okay. There are lots of people who are unfamiliar with that concept, who have intimacy dreams at night, and they're still making buckloads of money. They're making boatloads of money. They're living a good life. They have no idea what a spirit husband is or spirit wife is. Matter of fact, many of them don't even know what a succubus is or incubus is. They have no idea. They're just out there living their lives. And if they have a wet dream, they're like, oh well, I had a wet dream last night. And then they keep on going. But some of us labor under this and we struggle with it and we go to the pastor or we go to the alpha or the imam or whatever religious leader or even a traditional healer, and they'll say, "Oh, it's terrible. You're doomed. You're finished. There's nothing left for you." Okay. But the common theme for all of these is that whether it's a spirit wife, spirit husband, succubus, they come when the person is asleep. And it's really concerning if after that encounter you wake up exhausted, or you wake up from it and you can feel that you have lost quite a bit of your life energy. I mean, your life force. And people who are sensitive and who pay attention can generally tell when their life force is down. You just feel like you're holding on and you just woke up. You haven't even left the house yet. You haven't even done anything yet, and you just feel like, you know what, I'm just holding on here. Anything could happen to me right now. In that case, that intimacy dream or intimacy experience during the dream is problematic. And you need to go consult with your spiritual practitioner to figure out what to do about it. In some traditions, they might give you a potion to drink. They might do some rituals. Some traditions might, do incisions. They'll make some incisions in your skin and put some medicines in there. And the point of that is to repel these entities that are having their way with you. And people's experiences, intimate experiences with these entities vary. There are some people who say, I was just in this dream and everything was happening and I didn't resist. And some people said, well, I was trying to resist, but it happened regardless. And some people were like, you know what? I participated. There's a part of my brain that was saying I shouldn't participate, but I was participating. Either way, what happens after you wake up is a strong determinant of the nature of that intimate dream. Okay. Now, how do we come to the egregores? Remember what an egregore is. And I've taught a couple of weeks on egregores. Okay, so if you're new here, you're unfamiliar with egregores, go to my YouTube channel. I have a couple of free videos on egregores, what they are, how they're created, what they do, and so on and so forth. Intimacy egregores are different from incubi, succubi, spiritual wife, spiritual husband, and all those things in the sense that an egregore is not limited to nighttime dreaming only. An egregore can act any time of the day or night, 24/7, 365. An egregore does not have to wait for you to fall asleep for it to start working its task. And can you have an intimacy egregore that feeds off sexual energy and life force? Yes. There are egregores like that. They're created to do exactly that. Another difference is that most people who interact with intimacy egregores do so willingly. The intimacy egregore will not terrorize or scare its victim. Oftentimes, the victim will intensely desire the egregore in the form in which it appears. Let me give an example. Remember when we were talking about the Jesus egregore? Okay. There is a version of a Jesus egregore that some nuns, okay, women who are celibate in the church, they experience. Okay. And some of them will relish, look forward, and invite intimacy with this egregore because they think that this egregore is actually Jesus. That's their belief. When you understand how a woman gets initiated into a convent to become a sister, to become a nun, the third and last stage of her initiation and consecration to become a nun involves being married to Jesus. He is the sacred groom. And that is why when you see a nun, a sister, someone who belongs to a convent, they always have a wedding ring on. They get that wedding ring at the last stage of their initiation into sisterhood. And when they get that ring, they're clearly told, now you are married to Jesus. You cannot marry anybody else. You are in a covenant with Jesus forever and ever. So you cannot marry anybody, and even after you leave this world, you are still covenanted to Jesus. But the problem is, what Jesus are they covenanted to? And many of them honestly and sincerely believe that they are spiritually married to the carpenter, the Middle Eastern historical carpenter. But you and I know that that's not possible. Okay. And so what happens is that this nun is married to an egregore of Jesus. Okay. And if it is an intimacy based egregore or an intimacy egregore, she will start experiencing having visions and trances and dreams about this egregore. And more often than not, she's going to be surrounded by other nuns, other sisters who are into this intimacy egregore. And so it becomes aspirational. And when you do a little bit of research into this, it's fascinating because these sisters honestly and truly believe that when they're in this trance, they're seeing Jesus and they're being physically intimate with Jesus. And so they will experience the kissing and the touching and the everything and the penetration and everything and whatnot. Okay? They will experience that. They will actually feel and see this egregore touching them just like you and I touching and holding each other. They will experience that. Because we understand that the egregore, a well crafted egregore, can appear like a human being. And remember, I gave an example of the Tibetan tulpas, okay, or the tulpas. The Tibetan monks back in the day could create these egregores that walked, talked, behaved like human beings. And they would use these tulpas for their religious work. And after a while, some of these tulpas became very powerful, and they would have to be switched off because the people who create an egregore can switch it on and they can switch it off. Okay. So you have these nuns that will say, I was in my cell room and I was praying. And Jesus came to me and started making love to me. And there is nothing you will say to that nun that will make her believe that she did not experience what she experienced. And this will be the highlight of her life. And sometimes this Jesus egregore, this intimate Jesus egregore, may come to her once or may come to her multiple times. And when she goes to report this to the Mother Superior or to the abbotess, they will say, congratulations. Your marriage has been to Jesus has been consummated. You are highly favored. You're highly blessed. And of course, no one thinks about how ludicrous it is that you have a bunch of women in a building, you're telling them they cannot marry any man, but all of them are married to the same entity. The laws of the land say that bigamy, marrying one more than one person at a time, is against the law. But here you have this Jesus egregore being polygamous, and no one seems to have a problem with a polygamous Jesus. So you see that the standards here are not even just double, they're not even triple. The standards are all over the place. And in case you wondered, this also happens on the male side when men have become priests or monks and have sworn themselves to celibacy. Some of them will say that they were sleeping with Mother Mary or they're sleeping with some other saint. And they will celebrate that. And they will glorify that. And they will look forward to that. And they will encourage that. And these intimate encounters can happen any time of the day or night, unlike the Succubus and Incubus. They could be out there gardening and have an encounter in the convent garden or the monastery garden. They could be in the library or in the chapel praying and they'll have an encounter. They could be in their room sleeping and they'll have an encounter. And they love these encounters and they encourage these encounters and they will run and tell their colleagues, I had this encounter. But it's an egregore. So the short and skinny on this really is if you are having these kinds of experiences, I would encourage you to watch the replay of this class. Watch the replay of this class. Go get a divination from a spiritual practitioner you trust to get some clarity around it. And I say this because remember when I was teaching on egregores, especially the Jesus egregore, I said some of these egregores are good and useful. And if you know how to use them without being emotionally attached to them, you can use them to your own advantage. Some of them may not be so good. And if you get entangled with them, you'll have a price to pay. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, you are tired of dealing with real human beings. And you're like, you know what? I want an intimacy egregore. And I'm just, making this up at this point, okay? Just as an illustration. I'm not saying you should go look for an intimacy egregore, but let's say you really are not into people, or you've been bashed so many times, your heart is in fragments, and you're like, you know what? It's either getting an intimacy egregore, or ordering a robot from China. If you're going to get involved with this, you need to understand, what will it cost me energy wise? Because egregores feed on energy, just like the succubus and incubus. Is this sustainable? As far as those religious people are concerned, the nuns and the monks, they didn't have that. Most of them don't have day jobs. I mean, nowadays they probably do, but especially back then in the medieval times, they didn't have any other job than to be in the convent and praying and farming, and they would farm and cultivate just what they could eat in their community. They weren't farming to feed the rest of the nation. And they would weave cloth to make their outfits, their habits. They were self-sufficient, and so they could afford to indulge in these things. But if you have a job, a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 8, and you got bills to pay, if I'm going to get me an intimacy um, egregore, I'm going to get one that pays the bills. I'm just saying from a pragmatic point of view. If you're going to be, if we're going to be doing the whoop de doo, you had better be paying some bills. Okay? I don't care what what your plan is. You need to be paying some bills, and major bills. We're not talking about Taco Bell bills, or McDonald's bills, or Mr. Big's bills, or Chicken Republic bills. No, we're talking about major bills. We need to be talking about mortgage, or car note, or investments, and paying off my credit card or something, student loan or something. Okay, you need to be working for me. Show the money. You got that right. We're not going to be ding-a-linging and ling-a-dinging, and at the end of the day, I still have to run out there and pay my bills. So, egregore or not, you're going to make yourself useful to me. Now, that's just me, okay? Because, you can interact with an egregore in order to have that egregore perform its task to help you solve a problem. So remember that every egregore has a specific task that it has. And so you can look at what its task is and say, can this task of this egregore help me solve my problems? It's either a yes or a no. If you don't know what you're doing, I wouldn't get involved with egregores, because you don't want to get in over your head and give it more power than it needs to have over you and your affairs. So if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not a master occultist or a metaphysician, if you don't have a lot of experience, you probably want to leave egregores alone. They could be useful and they could be not so useful. Okay. So what questions do you have about this topic? Well, let's sip on my ice water. You know, I'm of the viewpoint that if you're going to be dealing with an egregore, you might as well be dealing with an egregore that's solving your problems. Okay, Shanta. I'm live on both YouTube and TikTok. So, you know. Okay. If you're going, and this is my general rule of thumb, if you're going to be dealing with any spirit guides, spiritual entities, energetic entities, things of that nature, you need to deal with the ones that solve your problems. Don't be willy-nilly out there. Oh, Dr. Tochi is playing with some egregores that do blah, 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 blah. And you don't know Dr. Tochi's background. You don't know what Dr. Tochi is doing. And you're like, well, I trust Dr. Tochi. So if she's playing tiddlywinks with these egregores, I guess I can play tiddlywink with them too. Nice to meet you, Shanta. Because somebody else is doing something doesn't necessarily mean that you too have to do it, especially if you're not sure of what they're doing. There are people who are expert in dealing with egregores, and they use egregores to control other people. And they are skillful at getting people to attach themselves to egregores. And people think that they're getting attached to one thing, but they don't know they're getting attached to something else. They think they're venerating Jesus, for example, and they don't know that they're venerating and feeding a Jesus egregore. And everybody's all up in there screaming, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And the real Jesus already switched off his phone and put it on D&D, do not disturb. And folks be out there hollering and carrying on and calling him Jesus. Jesus asleep. Jesus working on other things. And they are working with egregores, thinking it's Jesus. And then it's when you see what that egregore does, you pay attention to how that egregore operates, then you understand that that's not the historical Jesus. And remember, I was saying in classes before, it's not just the Jesus egregore. There are egregores for practically everything and everybody and all kinds of spirit guides. So you have some people out here saying Ogun, 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 and they're working with an egregore of Ogun and not the real Ogun. In this week's advanced member class, we're going to be talking about um, the principle of as a spiritual principle of reflection and how that relates to spirit guides and egregores. Because there are different kinds of things that people can put together if they have the spiritual knowledge to do so. Hold on. Those of you who've been following me for a while, you know I hate flies. I just saw one crawl across my computer screen. Okay. So there are some master occultists, master spiritual practitioners who can whip up a combination of things. And then you're sitting there thinking it's one thing, but it's actually something else. Can we do banishing rituals on behalf of our adult child who's involved with a Jesus egregore? No. In all the things I've been sharing about egregores, have you heard me mention anything about banishing ritual? A person has to decide to disengage from it. There's nothing like banishing. They're not spirit guides, they're not spiritual entities. Egregores are energetic entities. That's what makes them so difficult to deal with. They're not they're not spiritual entities or spirit guides that are like, oh, if you do this, there's a consequence. No, egregores are switched on and switched off. And so that adult child has to choose to leave the egregore, unfortunately. You know, it's similar to us watching our mothers and our fathers in their WhatsApp groups. And they're sharing all these messages from pastors and whatnot and the other. Some of the messages are so ludicrous. All you can do is show alternative knowledge. That's all you can do. Because if I taught a class was it a couple of weeks ago, or was it a video clip I did on understanding the hooks and chains of egregores? It, and I think last Sunday didn't we just deal with egregores attached to lineages? These things are so embedded in the DNA. And the only thing that gets rid of them is a lack of attention. If you stop feeding them, that is what stops them. But as long as you're paying attention to them, they continue surviving and thriving. That's how these things work. Because they're not spirit guides. They're not spirits. Look at them like computer programs. Can you do a ritual to stop a computer program? No. You can't. Now you can delete the software. You can wreck the hardware. You can install some other software over that software, which is often what people do with egregores. People will leave one egregore and attach themselves to another egregore. And they think that they've achieved liberation, but they haven't really, because they just exchanged one egregore for another egregore. So you'll find that often with folks who leave religion, who leave organized religion, and they will say to you, "Oh no, I'm no longer a Christian, or I'm no longer a Muslim. Um, I'm going to now practice the faiths of my ancestors." So they were leaving one religion and going to another religion. But they will tell you, "Oh, I've become more spiritual." No, you haven't. You just exchange one religion for another religion, and there's nothing wrong with that. Understand me. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's say, for instance, you were a Christian, or maybe you were Muslim. There was this lady I saw on TikTok last week, and she was a Muslim. I think she's from East Africa, one of the countries in East Africa, and she was like, "You know what? I'm no longer interested in Islam. I'm going to go back to the religion of my ancestors." So she just replaced one religion with another religion. And maybe that religion will work out for her because she seemed to be happy with it. Now the Muslims in the comment section were unhappy, but she was happy with it. And it's the same thing with the Christians. You'll see somebody saying, "Oh, I'm tired of being a Christian. Why am I praying to Jesus? Jesus don't look like me. I want to pray to Yamaya." So they exchange one religion for another religion. And then sometimes they're exchanging one egregore for another egregore. So in the religion, the Christianity they thought they were working with the real historical Jesus, and they weren't. They were working with an egregore, because the historical Jesus has gone on. Okay. And they left that, and they're like, "Oh, I'll find someone to take me to Nigeria, to Oshobo, to go and get initiated." And so they'll travel to Nigeria, or they'll travel to Lome, to Togo, or Dahomey Republic. Not what was it? Benin Republic used to be called Dahomey back in the day. If you're old enough, you would know. And so they're like, "No, I want to be a voodoo practitioner," or "No, I'm going to go to Haiti. I want to become a Mambo. I want to become a Hungan." And they're just exchanging one religion for another religion. And so they go there, get initiated, and then fly back to their country. Did you fly back with the deity, or are you going to be working with an egregore where you are? That for you represents the deity. Because remember, spirit guides are in charge of a place. Think about it. If you have Urzuli operational in Haiti, will Urzuli leave Haiti to be operational in Houston, Texas? And some people will say, "Oh yeah, Urzuli can be anywhere." Like somebody, I think the other day, was saying Oshun is in charge of all the sweet waters. Okay. If Urzuli is going to leave Haiti, or Oshun is going to leave Nigeria to come and take over your local water spot, what about the indigenous spirit guides who are already present in that place? Will Urzuli displace them? Think about that. You travel to Haiti to get initiated, or you travel to Nigeria to get initiated, and you're now saying, oh, this spirit guide is in charge of the water that I'm going to go worship at. How about the original owners, the indigenous spirit guides of that water? What happens to them? Do they just stand aside and watch you venerate others, deities or goddesses or gods, and they're just standing there watching you and saying, oh, okay, I guess it's okay. It's a free world. So most people don't think this through. Spirit guides are in charge of specific places. They have a specificity to them. And some of us walk around with the Columbus mentality. If I got there, I discovered it. It did not exist until I got there. So you go to the Chattahoochee River and you are like, okay, I'm going to be doing my thing at the Chattahoochee River. And I'm going to be calling Yamaya here. I'm going to be calling Oya here. I'm going to be calling Oshun here. Who was there first? Shanta says, no, I don't think that spirits that control rims. I'm not sure what you mean by rims. I don't think spirits that control rims interfere in each other's territories. They don't. They cooperate. They cooperate. And so, if I am here and I want to go to the Chattahoochee River and I want to work with my water deity in Ghana, there's a procedure for that. I don't go to the Chattahoochee and start yelling and calling on my water spirit deity in Ghana. I don't stand up there and be yelling. There's a protocol for that. Okay. So, Fire, I hope that answered your question. Any other questions before we call it a night? I'm putting together the structure of the 6-day retreat. I encourage you to consider attending this retreat, because in the retreat we're going to be talking about how you can disengage. You meant territory. Okay. We're going to be talking about how, and not just talking about, but demonstrating how to disengage from egregores. How to pull yourself back from egregores. And how to cut cords from egregores. That's what we're going to be dealing with in that retreat. We're going to be doing rituals. I have lectures and things of that. So that's why I said that the retreat is going to be intensive. Hello, Love 3. Thank you. Kitty Puss, this was very helpful. Thanks. You're welcome. You're welcome, Fire. So one of the things, I will encourage you to consider thinking about is how to start disentangling yourself from the egregores that you're already entangled with. And there are some times when we think, Oh, yeah, I've left the church. Yeah, you may have left the church, but the church hasn't left you. There are sometimes you think you've left the church, but you're still feeding the egregore. So there's so many things like that that we need to liberate ourselves from in order to move forward. And I say this with all gravitas. I say this with all gravitas. Because there are people out here, oh, I've done all these rituals and nothing is changing. My situation is getting worse. Are there other things you're entangled with? Are there things that you're feeding? Because if you are doing these rituals and you're trying to put energy into this ritual in order to tackle something, but you're unable to put in sufficient energy into that ritual because your energy is leaking and feeding a whole bunch of egregores, your ritual is not going to be successful. And there's no point blaming other people or blaming the spiritual practitioner if you have energy leaks. And there are many people who have energy leaks. And you point out, hey, here's where your energy is leaking, and the person starts arguing with you. Thank you for the TikTok gifts. Lit up TikTok. Okay. Is TikTok supposed to give me something for all these things you're giving me on TikTok? Love 3. Is TikTok supposed to be giving me something for it? Or it's just like flashing on the screen? I'm not sure how that works. Oh, okay. All right. So, any other questions? Okay. And in case you wondered if you wanted to give a donation or contribution to my work, um, I do have Cash App and Zelle and PayPal and things of that nature. You usually see that in the description below my videos, or if you don't see it, it's on my website. Go to the donate button. Okay. Okay, here comes TikTok. I have to prove that I'm still here. It says live will end in 4 minutes 56 seconds. We have detected inactivity during your current live. How could you say you're detecting inactivity? Complete the verification to continue your current live. How can you say that you're detecting inactivity? Hmm. That's how these things keep on trying to engage us. It just keeps on, don't want you to go, oh, can we access your contact list? Can we access your messages? Can we access this? Do you give us permission to do this? Because they just want to pull in more people into this thing. Carolyn, so how do we disentangle ourselves from any form of egregore but religion and family? Yeah, that's what I'm going to teach in the retreat. There's a process for it. And you can go do the research yourself and figure out how to do it. I mean, this is not secret knowledge. But the bottom line is you've got to stop feeding the egregore. You got to leave it alone. You have to leave that egregore alone. But if you're dealing with a particularly difficult and a particularly sentient egregore, it can be challenging. Like if you're dealing with lineage egregores, but it's doable. It's doable. It will require effort on your part. You can do a little bit of research on it, Carolyn. Okay. It requires work. You can do the research. Okay. So basically, what I'm going to do in the retreat is to save people the trouble of doing the research. We're going to do practically. We're that's why it's going to be 6 days, a minimum of 6 days. We're going to be at it every day to identify the egregore. Okay. And for some people it's quick, and for some people it's not so quick. Unfortunately, depending on how long they've been messing with it. Like people who say, "Oh, I've left the church." And feel that they still have to attend services and feel that they still have to contribute and feel that they still have to honor church traditions. They're still messing with the egregore. It's an example. They're still messing with that egregore. And sometimes people are like, okay, I'm finding it hard to disentangle myself from this egregore. Can I find another egregore to replace it with? And my question is, do you have to? And for some people, that's what they do. But do you have to replace one egregore with another in order to disentangle yourself from the egregore? So let's say, for instance, you're dealing with a shadow mother egregore. Remember, I taught about the shadow mother and shadow father egregore last week or the week before? Do I need to replace it with a different egregore in order to be free of it? And then the other question is, what if you're dealing with multiple egregores? Most people are dealing with multiple egregores. They're dealing with a Jesus egregore. They're dealing with a shadow mother egregore, shadow father egregore. They're dealing with lineage egregores. And then maybe they're following some other religion out there and they have egregores they're dealing with there. Maybe they're into politics and they're dealing with some political egregores. I met an older lady at the nail shop a couple of days ago. She said she was 76. She came with her husband, and she said they had been together since she was 15. She was 76. And she started talking about the political situation here. And she was like, "Oh, it just riles me up, and I can't stand it." And she was going on and on and on and on. And I said to her, "Ma'am, how does it concern you?" She's like, "Yeah, I just get so angry." Why? You're not a politician. You're 76. You're on Social Security. You're not working. Why is it riling you? Now, she had said to me, "It makes me unhappy." That's one thing. But riling you, getting you emotionally distraught. Why are you entangled with this thing? You're not working. You and your husband own your own house. And I think he was a veteran, so he's getting a lot of things, free, like he rightfully should. So why are you riled? So you see, there's some people who are out there feeding political egregores. And they're feeding it with attention and emotion. And so you have people who work with these egregores, push them through the media, through TV, radio, and social media. And people engage and get riled or get passionate or get angry. So many of us are feeding and have our energy leaking to multiple egregores. And that's a problem. So it becomes difficult to move forward. So you might have the best of intentions. You will go to a spiritual practitioner who say, "Yeah, see your destiny. Your destiny is bright. You were supposed to be this, and you're supposed to be that. And you're supposed to have this, and you're supposed to have that." And you're there going, "Why and why am I not these things? And why don't I have these things?" And I've been doing all these rituals and spells and prayers and invocations and cleansings and fastings and all these things. And I'm going, "No, well, where's your energy going to?" Okay. Any other questions? Are you fully educated now? Okay, I'll try my best to come on tomorrow night so that we can continue this conversation on egregores. It's huge, it's vast. And it's a very important topic because many of us are just embroiled and entangled with these things and we're not aware. And so one of the things we have to do is to wake up first. First, just wake up. Many of us are sleeping. And people are coming out there saying, "Well, let me tell you the real truth, We're from the planet Nibiru and we're descendant from ancient gods and goddesses," but you're still asleep. You're just trading one dream for another dream. Because again, you can tell me about the planet of Nibiru, you can tell me about the kings and queens of ancient Egypt or ancient Inca civilization, or you can tell me about all these other things. But if I can't pay my mortgage, I still have a problem. If I have diabetes, I have a problem. And you can talk to me all about the glory of my race and the glory of other races and my ancestors or whatnot the other. If my boss is writing me like the devil at work, I have a problem. And there's no amount of kingship and queenship that's going to deal with that. So one of the things we need to do is to start waking up. We really need to start waking up. Because many of us are just unconscious. Okay. So it looks like there are no more questions. Okay. I will go to sleep. Thank you so much for the gifts, Love 3. Hand hearts, friendship necklace, TikTok trumpets, uh, hats, and mustaches, and all kinds of things, and TikTok that I have no idea what they are. All right. We're thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, and our spirit guides. We're thankful to the unknown masters, and we're also thankful to ourselves for today's forbidden fruit. May it continue to yield bountifully in our lives. Ashe. Ashe, ashe, we say. The koza kumagu, sedi, mapande, ayababo. It is done, it is finished, it's complete in Yinho. Brigada, brigado. Is it a brigada or brigado? I forgot. Ma'at, amen. So thank you for coming to class. Love you all. Thank you for the gifts, love 3. Thank you to all those who liked and hearted the class tonight. I appreciate you. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Fire.